So this isn't a hit upon kind of PR people at all, but for example, someone like Kathy at Spark, I've been talking to for pretty much as long as I can remember covering cybersecurity. And, you know, she's obviously been able to be party to a lot of the major stories. You know, if I sort of said, reference to this, you understand what I meant. But I think the thing with a lot of PR people I find is they're kind of very rapidly promoted. And I've seen on LinkedIn people, I remember one guy, I met him as like a junior executive. He's now running his own company. That's great for him. That's absolutely terrific. But that is in the time I pretty much held like, you know, one position. He went rapidly through one of the biggest tech PR companies in this country. So I do think, you know, that does unfortunately mean that, you know, because he's going to get replaced and you start over with someone else, and it's like, is that person, is the training in place? Now, I don't expect every single, you know, junior exec to kind of come into a PR company and understand how PKI works and explain, you know, the backbones of every single encryption, you know, transaction. But what it is, obviously, I can guess it's quite tricky to try and train everybody to a level that's acceptable. But at the same time, all they're really there to do is try and connect you with the spokesperson, the company they're representing, or the story they're trying to promote. It's not up to them to try and, you know, figure out if this is right for you. So I think generally I would say it's, even though I probably don't think the standard of technical knowledge is high, I don't think it really should be. I think it should be up to each company to make sure that sort of people are equipped to be able to talk about this to a level, and then obviously if the journalist is absolutely, you know, really determined questions, sort of say, right, there are people we're representing who can answer all these questions for you. Let me get you on the phone to you. You know, I think that's the way it should be. So yeah, it's kind of a challenging one because, you know, it is an industry that's, you know, PR is obviously, you know, pretty vibrant at the moment. There's a lot of people around, but at the same time, there's a lot of opportunities to learn, like I said earlier. Actually, you know, I get fewer phone calls these days than I used to, actually, mainly because we changed software. I don't seem to ever get any calls anymore. I'm not complaining. Yeah, I mean, we get tons of emails, and, you know, there is being very specific on cybersecurity means we don't cover things like storage, we don't cover a huge amount of mobile. So I can only imagine what some of the sort of more broader tech journalists at the Nationals are kind of dealing with, because they are covering all this stuff. So, for example, when there's a new Apple launch, we probably wouldn't really look at that because it'd be like, okay, what's the security impact here? Also, because we do enterprise security rather than consumer, so it really narrows it down for us. But at the same time, it does mean that sometimes you get topics that are repeated quite a lot. You know, and so literally, like this week, I've had like 2 article pitches around zero trust. And it's all about like, you know, do you want an article around zero trust and what it is? It's like, well, the thing is, I kind of wrote about that 2 years ago. And I think, I'm not saying everybody, again, it goes back to the PR thing, even our audience don't understand every single thing, but at the same time, we can't sort of think you've got to re-explain everything. We especially got that with GDPR, and again, an article pitch I had this week, literally trying to explain what GDPR is. And I'm like, hey, you're about, you know, nearly 18 months too late on this. And secondly, actually, while I don't think our audience are absolutely clued in, there is a lot better resources they're going to come to than what you've written and what we can publish, so you can actually get this sort of thing. So yeah, you've got to try and figure out what the audience is going to actually be interested in and what's going to work. Because if you just kind of repeat the same content, it gets kind of boring for you and probably doesn't really attract the reader either. So I would say just, you know, I remember Charles Arthur sort of kind of calling it like this sort of scattergun approach where things are just sent to everybody. Obviously, I know that is the way things like, you know, mailing systems work, and they do, you know, PR people are trying to get as many, you know, to as many people as they can. I know it's, you know, sort of exclusive stories do get issued to some of the bigger publications. I've seen that with some things recently. I get a 2 p.m. embargo, and I'm like, hang on a minute, Forbes have already got this. How did that happen? That's because Forbes have got a much bigger reach than maybe some of the other ones have, but that's just the way it is. But I would say always kind of, I'm not saying exclusive though, you know, it is, when you see exclusive, especially on a story, you do think it's probably going to be something like a product launch, which we don't really cover so much. You know, sometimes you might get exclusives on things like reports, which is great, but then, you know, full well, you're only getting a 24-hour exclusive. You know, you might get it on a Monday when it comes out to everybody else on a Tuesday. And then I appreciate the fact that if you offered it exclusive to Infosecurity, then, you know, it's already been picked up by us. The chances are that some of our competitors might think, well, actually, you know, there's 100 other reports coming out this week, we could just cover that one instead, that we haven't already been picked up by us. So it's a tricky one. I think one of the common problems I often see, I don't mean this to be sort of xenophobic, I do see it a lot less in the UK and a lot more from overseas, is when you kind of have like a sort of 5 paragraphs and like the pitch at the bottom. And it's like you've got 5 paragraphs of this is my problem, and then at the bottom you're kind of going through going, what you offer me? Is it an article, is it an interview, is it a story, what is it you're offering? I would say always try and get that to the top, you know, who the company is. It's that whole kind of who, what, when, where, etc. Who the company is, what they're offering, and what it is you're offering to me. Because if it's an interview, you know, I've then got to consider, is it something I need to do? If it's an article, is it something I need to act upon? So yeah, always try and just get it, you know, that whole kind of below the fold thing. If you can get the attention in the first sort of 5 seconds, then yeah, you probably have more chance of winning, really. I think I'd probably try and read everybody, actually. I try and look around some of the sort of the bigger name security writers, Andy Greenberg, Brian Krebs, even our good friend Tom Brewster, who I've known for a very long time now, and he's still kind of, I still see him about once a year in Vegas. I don't even see, not live in the same city as him. But yeah, so guys like that, those three, as well as also people like Kaya Flaherty, I think does a really good job. She's done some work for Infosecurity this year, which is great. And obviously I should mention Eleanor Dalloway, Michael Hill, who I work with, who I read all their stuff because most of which I'm proofing. So yeah, you know, they've been really, really good, great to work with, and you know, they both turn around a really good copy as well. I think also I do just take a great interest in what like the national press are doing, because I'm always interested to see how they report some of the issues that we cover so well, so frequently. So, for example, I think I can't remember his name, there's a new guy at the BBC covering cybersecurity quite specifically. And he's done some really good coverage actually lately. So it used to be Dave Lee was doing a lot of it, and now but he's in the US now. But yeah, there's a UK guy actually, game's completely gone. But sorry? Possibly. It'd be one of those guys if I searched around I'd find his name. But yeah, I think he's done some really good stuff on ransomware and things like that. And yeah, again, their remit is very different because they're writing for obviously a huge audience, but also an audience that is going to be all the way down to, you know, people at home, all the way to businesses. So they've got to try and reach, you know, a really broad spectrum, and they can't make it too technical. They can't make it too basic because, you know, you'll fit in the middle. So I would say, and also anything on. If a big cybersecurity story was being featured in the news, I always tend to look around and go, like, who have they picked up? And why wasn't it me?